And welcome back to part 2 of this week's new comics, bitches. We had finished up. We were talking about the freebie that everybody got this week, which was all the 52 number ones. Of course, the first one we're going to get is Justice League #1. Because that's the big, that's like the go-to comic. The other thing that does kind of bug me about this is that it seems like there's a lot of that stuff that is actually currently going on in the comics is actually going to bleed into these comics, which doesn't really make that much sense if they're going for kind of a redesign, if you will. I mean, see, that's the whole thing, is that it seems like it's a reboot, but at the same time it doesn't. So I don't get it. I'm at a loss. So again, this will be something that will be obviously hotly contested for the next few months. So, but we'll see at the end of September how all these #1s do. Okay, Iron Age #2. This is one of my big surprises and one of my favorite books of the last week that it came out. This one a little different because it's obviously we're still following Iron Man, Tony Stark, through time. He keeps ending up at this part of his life where he is, he's the alcoholic asshole, and he's alienated everything. He's alienated everybody. He's lost everything, but he needs to find the next piece to create the device that will allow him to fight the Phantom and stop him from annihilating annihilating the entire world. And basically once he gets there, because Iron Man very recently in this past that he travels to did some pretty stupid shit because he was drunk off his ass, and he basically decides to hire the heroes for hire, but not to protect Iron Man. Iron Man takes off, quote unquote, and then Tony Stark asks the heroes for hire to basically protect him and help him as they go through this neighborhood to try and they're basically looking to confront the Tinkerer, who ends up to be the Tinkerer, who has another piece of this tech. And of course, all hell breaks loose when the Scorpion comes out from behind the Tinkerer's shop there and starts trying to lay the smackdown on what was then Power Man and Iron Fist. Of course, Power Man is now just Luke Cage. But it was cool, because he has the chains around his wrists and he's got the yellow shirt on, and it's just kind of fun to kind of look back at that time and just kind of laugh a little bit, that he's got the headband on and everything like that, the metal headband, because the character design I always thought was kind of silly, but it was appropriate for the time that it was created. So I'm just glad that they did redesign him. But because each segment that I've seen so far, because I'm still trying to find Iron Age Alpha, is Tony dealing with, okay, well, he's in the past now. He has the opportunity to right wrongs that he either knows are going to happen, or B, that he himself has committed. Because obviously with Danny Rand and with Luke Cage, he knows that he's going to end up fighting these guys someday during the Civil War, and he kind of wants to straighten that out, but he can't. Again, you know, he just can't. And so our second story is he actually is confronted by Dr. Doom himself, who actually created this tech, to find another piece of this puzzle. And during this, he tries to, since it's Dr. Doom, who else are you going to call but the FF, Fantastic Four? Well, they're all out of town, so except for Johnny Storm, who, of course, in our continuity is dead. And Tony, while trying to figure out what the hell he needs to do as far as with Doctor Doom, he actually runs into himself in that era, and kind of wants to smack the shit out of him because he's just being a douchebag. And even Johnny walks away thinking, man, that guy was an asshole. And before Iron Man's, before he's got to split again, he so badly wants to tell Johnny that, because he really feels that his death, when he was trying to stop the beings from the negative zone trying to bleed into our world, that he fucked up. And that's not that he fucked up, but that he was trying to prove something, that he could be just as good as any of the rest of them. And part of that is growing up, and he wants to stop that. He wants to have him grow up now, start growing up now, so that he won't maybe feel like so much of a kid when during the negative zone confrontation that ultimately takes his life. So I mean, there's a bittersweet, or I should say more melancholy undercurrent running through this entire book. And it is sad, obviously, to see people that because I mean, last issue, he's dealing with people that he knows are going to die. He's dealing with people that are going to eventually become kind of foes of his, even though they do end up reconciling. But there's nothing he can do about it without altering the course of events. So it's just a bummer. I liked I did prefer the Iron Man and Johnny Storm story over the Heroes for Hire one, and I'll tell you why. And not just because of the actual emotional implications that it has, which are very strong and is dealt with very well, but the art is by Ron Frenz, and the inking is done by Sal Buscema, who he's worked for a long time. This guy he's worked for a long time, and I'm not always the biggest fan of his art, but I like seeing it. There's just something about his art that I like, even though I know it's not that good. It's just, it's not like, but it's defining, I guess, of a time of like the 70s era of Marvel Comics, and also into the 80s as well. So it's just, it was nice to see that. So I guess more of a personal thing for me. Okay, so again, it was still a really good book, a really good read, and I suggest that I definitely say that Iron Age is something worth picking up. Okay, Daredevil, number 1. This time, Mark Waid has taken over the title from those who had it before. It's gone from Bendis to Brubaker to Andy Diggle's run that I did not care for. And now it is Mark Waid, who I know is a great writer. But to me, he's just not on par with people like Bendis and Brubaker. It looks like he's trying to bring kind of a lighter touch back to this, not only because of the events of Shadowland, because that was so dark, but because of I think that he wants to distinguish his voice from being different from the kind of hard-boiled crime world that existed during the Bendis and Brubaker runs. And that's fine, because, he can be both. I mean, Daredevil can be, he can be kind of a light character, he can be a dark character, and this time I think that Wade is going for light. Anyway, basically what we've got here is that there's, he's at the wedding of mafioso, because he's heard that there's going to be potentially a hit, but it's not a hit; it's a kidnapping, and a little girl might be this little girl might be kidnapped by this villain called the Spot. Basically, he's called the Spot because he can actually appear from spots in space. Like, he has teleportation energy running all throughout his body, and so for Daredevil to fight somebody who can appear literally in any place at any given time, this presents somewhat of a challenge for him. But he doesn't, it doesn't affect him too much, because he even actually steals a kiss from the bride while he's fighting. But it's basically, this is Daredevil essentially kind of announcing he's back, and he's back in New York. He's back doing with his nose to the grindstone, keeping an eye on this, keeping an eye on crime, keeping an eye on this, more importantly, the street crime. The rest of the A story has to deal with Matt really having a problem with. Basically, he's ineffective as a lawyer now because of his outing, his quote-unquote outing as Daredevil. Even though it's been disproven, there's still that, all these people with these lingering doubts of, okay, is he really, was all this shit made up, or did this actually happen? Is he really Daredevil? Because so many people are still convinced that he is, and that's, it makes it very hard for him to properly defend, the good and the innocent. He tries to get to the bottom of maybe why no one would take this particular case that he's working on right now. No one else will touch it, and he's wondering why. And this new DA comes to visit him, who also thinks that he's probably Daredevil. And Daredevil decides to maybe take a look at this guy's, maybe why, so many people are unwilling to take this guy's case. And while he's looking into it, basically he is attacked. From the looks of it, his attacker is Captain America. This could be part of the, maybe Cap's new recruiting drive for the Avengers, because I think that it is rumored that Daredevil is going to become an Avenger finally. So whether or not that actually comes to happen, that would be very interesting. But the B story in this issue was much more endearing than the A story. They're both by Wade, but this one actually has art by Marcos Martin, whose recent couple of issues that he did on Amazing Spider-Man I just adored, because I love his style. And this is basically just, it's Matt and Foggy walking around, on a sunny day in Manhattan, and eventually, stopping off at Matt's dad's grave. And it's just the way, just the tone, the way that it's drawn, the way that it feels, the way that you connect with it. It's such good stuff, and Martin's such an awesome artist. I mean, it's not to undo any praise that should be heaped upon Paco Rivera, who does the A story, but Marcos Martin, man, he's just so awesome. So, a good read, good solid read, good solid first issue. So, we'll come back after the jump. See you in a bit.